There once lived a man of renown, and the man had a great multitude of followers. Yea, even had he many sheep among his flock. And the man was afflicted by strange compulsions, and suffered a troublesome fascination with creatures, and with animals, and with beasts. And the man toiled for many days and nights, compelling the sheep of his flock, that such creatures and animals were but great works of deception. And the man thought unto himself, For these sayings shall my God surely be pleased. And put forth the man these teachings in abundance, yet was not he correct always in his sayings. And many other truths spoke he, yet were his thoughts stolen from the mouths of prophets much mightier than he. And this man wore a hat made of worms, and he was pleased by the drunken bewilderment of his own sayings. And the man was consumed by his thoughts of the animals, and of the creatures, and of the beasts. And he made it known unto his flock that he had hated his father, and had hated his mother, and had hated his brothers and sisters, denouncing them, calling them mere creatures. And lo, was he proud of his hatred for the family of his birth. And also did the man speak of his other family, and of his own children, and how they too had come to hate him, and were become a stumbling block before him. And his God had placed these woes upon him, unbeknownst to him. For the man had failed to obey the commands of his God, yea, even his God's very first command. And all of this was the man made not to see, and with exceeding sorrow the man lamented. But the God who he desired to please had not yet revealed unto him the cause of his prolonged suffering. Now there was a sacred book of this God, and from the very beginning of the book, even unto the very end of the book, was there sealed a message for the children of this God. And throughout the book was there also sealed the same unchanging message, and the message was for the sanctification of the children of this God. The God had said that his children were to be set apart from the beasts, and were never to dwell among the branches of the trees of the beasts, lest their inheritance be, in time, taken from their sons, and cast into the great and terrible sea, and their connection to their God be severed. And the message held great wisdom, and the message had been lost for generations, yea, even hidden away from those who were to be sanctified. And it came to pass that there was a boy, and this boy sought to please the very same God. And the boy had a flock of his own, but his flock was meager, and often, when the boy spaketh wisdom unto his flock, many did not hear. And so the teachings of the boy were scattered into the depths of the abyss. But the boy knew his place, and neither sought he fame nor glory for his teachings and his wisdom. For he knew that his many sayings were as a bitter fruit, which was exceeding difficult to swallow. And so the boy lamented, but was content, assured that his God would one day reveal unto him a great purpose. And behold, his God did come to reveal such purpose. The eyes of the boy were opened by the words of a forgotten prophet, whose wisdom was buried beneath the sands of time by a great enemy, yea, even by the greatest enemy of their God. And the message of their God was to be wrought forth once again, and the boy was shown the message, and did shout its truth into the great and terrible sea, with fiery conviction, and with great rejoicing, for the boy had been given eyes to see the truth, in all its glory, as spoken by their God. And he was compelled to proclaim its magnificence. And the boy knew it was the truth, for he had seen it become manifest many number of times, many number of ways. And the man who wore a hat made of worms was hidden amidst the waves of the sea, and did lurk secretly among the boy's flock. And the man was made to hear the message of truth, which had come forth from out of the mouth of the boy. But the man who wore a hat made of worms was unwilling to accept the truth which his God had revealed. For the revelation of this truth did strike the man as a great hammer, and did shake him to his foundations as a great clap of thunder. And this truth could no longer the man deny. Yet still went he after his own heart, and desired not to hear the eternal wisdom of his fathers, which had been uttered by the boy. And the man had followed the lusts of his flesh, but now had come to see the cause of his torment. For he had spilled his seed among the beasts of the field, and in so doing had forsaken his birthright, and had dishonored the glory of his God. And the man who wore a hat made of worms did speak fiercely against the boy, for his anger had become like a mighty tempest. Yet spake he not the name of the boy in his sayings, for he feared greatly that his flock would come to know the boy's name, whereby they might be brought unto the truth of their God, which the man did hide. And it came to pass that there was another man of much renown, and lo, the man was a mighty warrior, and had also this warrior a flock of many sheep. And the warrior sought to please the same God. And mighty in spirit, and brave was the warrior, for he had revealed unto his sheep the lies of his generals, and of the lies of the great many conquests of his generals. And the mighty warrior came to be called the son of John. And, just as the man who wore a hat made of worms, did the warrior follow also after the lusts of his flesh. And in the eyes of his God were the warrior's perversions great. And the warrior came to disobey the command which his God made for the sanctification of his children. But the warrior was made to know it not, and did dwell among the branches of the trees of beasts. Now the warrior often was seen to graze amongst the boy's flock. And the warrior was pleased by the boy's sayings. But even so, with much confusion and torment did the warrior still toil. And it came to pass that he heard also the words of their God from out of the mouth of the boy. And lo, the truth weighed upon his neck as a heavy millstone. For the God made known unto him the depravity of his perversions, and of the lusts of his flesh, and of his iniquities. And so it was that the warrior was angered greatly by the truth, and said he unto the boy, I will cast thee into the fiery pit of our God's enemy, wherein thou shalt suffer for all eternity. But this authority did not the mighty warrior possess. And for many days thought he upon the truth which had been revealed by the boy. And the warrior was ashamed of the fruits of his tree, and he came to understand the reason for his many delusions, and his many days spent toiling in madness, that yea, it was his own God who had hidden himself from the warrior, for the sake of the warrior's iniquities. And the once mighty warrior cast false judgment upon the boy continually, for many days and for many nights, though he knew the boy speaketh righteously. And this was a burden unto the spirit of the once mighty warrior. And the man who wore a hat made of worms, and the once mighty warrior, cleaved unto their beasts, and cleaved unto the beasts that they had formed, even the abominations that they were in the eyes of their God. And it came to pass that, for many years, despite having been shown the truth, did the two men continue to follow after the lusts of their flesh. And there was to be great sorrow, and weeping, and gnashing of teeth. For their beloved beasts, and the beast they had formed, would surely betray them, and cast them aside, and leave them to dark solitude in their final days, just as their God had warned. And the boy suffered great sadness for the two men of renown. And the boy did pray unto their God, that they depart from the wicked filth wherein they chose to dwell, but they would not. And their hearts were hardened by the enemy of their God, and great was their frustration, and their final days filled with sorrow. And so were these the generations of those who dwelled among the beasts.